Yeah, I went to go.
At the top,
No.
at the end.
Hello and welcome, people of the universe. This is episode number 4 of Mission Accomplished, and I am joined today by Jim,
Hi.
new friend and guest, and returning today is Nathan, who we talked to last week about the Mandela effect and one of the new X-Files episodes. And today we're going to continue that conversation in more depth, focusing mostly on the Mandela effect and what's been going on in our crazy reality, and also mysticism and synchronicity. So how you guys doing today?
I'm doing great.
Good.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks for having us.
No problem. Good to have you here. So let's get further into the Mandela effect, because that is really what's super interesting here. And there's basically two schools of thought on this right now, which is the one is parallel universes, and the other is more similar to your thinking on it, which is outside influence on a single reality.
Right. There are actually several theories about what could be causing it. X-Files, actually, which we talked about last week, they did present one of the theories that I think Fox Mulder in the episode mentioned, that it's parallel realities, an alternate reality or parallel universe.
And then there's bleeding between the two.
And then the merging of those timelines,
Right.
those parallel realities, where you have two different realities merged into one, and that's why people are experiencing the alterations in the reality. Some people believe that this is CERN, the Large Hadron Collider in Switzerland, that has somehow, in their search for the God particle, have busted
Altered the fabric of reality.
altered the fabric of reality.
Yeah.
Many of the Christians who are concerned with the changes that are happening in their Bible believe that it is the Antichrist, setting the stage for the Antichrist's arrival on the scene, and that it is a quantum computer or D-wave computer, as they call it, fallen angel technology that is changing and altering their Bibles, which is
Right.
biblical prophecy.
Is that what they call quantum computing, fallen angel technology?
That's what a lot of the Christians who are being affected or experiencing the Mandela effect, their interpretation of what's happening to their Bible is this is fallen angel computer technology. I don't know if a lot of our viewers today will be familiar with the talk given by Geordie Rose, who is the inventor of the D-Wave computer.
Right, okay.
And he talks about using the computer to open doorways into other dimensions and pulling out resources.
Yes.
They think that computer is being used to alter their Bible. The theory that I have, that I am most interested in, that I have in the last 2.5 years, pretty much I feel proven to myself is what's actually going on, is that we are in one reality, and that reality is being altered by a supernatural power. And that is why we're seeing the changes. That's why we have residual evidence. That's why we're seeing evidence that it was a certain way that we remember, like Lion and the Lamb.
Mm-hmm.
There are sermons where that was used in the sermon, the way that verse used to exist. Not because that existed in a parallel reality, but because it has been altered purposely in our reality by a higher intelligence.
Right. Now, Jim,
Yes.
he's been on to this for a couple of years. We talked about it in the last episode, like
Right.
his history with it. What's your history with this kind of stuff?
Well, as I was mentioning to you before the show, Nathan and I ran into each other and just became friends. And it wasn't long before he started talking about his experiences, sort of some of the things he'd been through. And he had mentioned one day about the Mandela effect, and I said, "What's that?" And I do a lot of research. I've spent years. I've had my own experiences going back to the age of 3 on many of these topics we're talking about. So I was already open-minded to it.
Yeah.
And he just told me about, what was the example you used? Was it the
I think it was Berenstain Bears.
Bears?
Yeah.
And I was like, wait a second. My daughter had some of those books. And it occurred to me that it didn't seem right. And he mentioned a couple examples. Two that were specific to me experiencing it, but 20, 30 years ago.
Right.
I grew up in a time when I was first driving, and it wasn't until I saw a picture on the internet of the green light, yellow light, red light sequence.
Mm.
When I first started driving, it was green on top. And I had a flashback of a time at a light. I was just about ready to be pulled over by a cop for making an illegal turn, and I just had that picture of the light being that way. And then the other one was cold water on the left and hot water on the right. I grew up with cold water on the left, and I remember I have scenes of myself bathing and seeing that cold water on the left.
That's one that that immediately hits me, because I remember as a kid, for a number of years, like suddenly that changed.
Yes.
And
you were
like,
scalding yourself.
Right. And I remember like, and I remember asking myself, like, I remember being at my grandmother's sink or something and just thinking to myself, how am I supposed to remember which side it's on if it's on the wrong side? Right. And just being like totally confused as a kid and stuff like that.
You noticed the alteration.
Yeah. Like pretty early.
Yeah,
like
I remember it too. I remember a time where I was scalding myself and thinking, how am I not doing this right now?
Right.
After all this time in the same shower, that I've done a million times before, and now I can't figure this thing out. Never would have considered that it switched sides.
No, it would seem to be beyond the possibility. I immediately turned it on myself and said, I misremembered, or I'm off today, or maybe I had too much to drink, so whatever. But I remember it distinctly because in the year 2000, my wife and I bought a house up in Jersey.
Oh, that's where I'm from.
Oh, are you?
Yeah.
Cliffwood Beach.
Okay, yeah. I just came from Ocean County.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did a lot of traveling up there, but I had a handyman. We knew a handyman. We asked them to come down because we needed a work sink to put in the lower bathroom, one of those big ones, and we wanted to get a nice one. And he put it in, and everyone's complaining. Goes, what? The water's mixed up. He put it in reversed. He put in the cold water on the left and the hot water on the right. And he was confused. And he was our friend. He's kind of a special needs guy.
Yeah.
But still with it enough that he knew the difference. And he was even surprised. He says, I don't understand it. It's always been that way. And that stayed with me. And that came to me as soon as Nathan brought that up to me about that it came back to me. And I said, I stored that. And I distinctly remember him being puzzled.
Right. It's so weird how it hits you, too. It's like the strangest feeling, and it's just very similar to deja vu and those things like that. Now, you were talking to me recently about this one example that you caught just in the past year.
Yes, this one to me is fascinating. It's a little bit of a departure of the alterations that we've witnessed so far. Usually, all right, this is a song. It's the song from the 1967 Disney film, The Jungle Book. It's called The Bare Necessities.
Right.
And usually when a song changes, like a lot of people are familiar with the alteration, if they're following the Mandela effect, of the Mamas and Papas song California Dreaming.
Okay.
The line used to be, stopped into a church along my way, got down on my knees, and I began to pray.
Mm-hmm.
That altered to, I got down on my knees and I pretend to pray. Now, what happened with that alteration, all the published lyrics, sheet music, songbooks, record liner, all of those altered to that new reality. So that not only did the vocals that the Mamas and Papas are singing change, but so did the published lyrics.
Right.
In this case, that's not what has happened. The song, The Bare Necessities, there's a line about 20 seconds into the song where Phil Harris, the actor doing the voice of Bolo the bear, I think it's Bolo was his name, the bear, he sings, "Wherever I wander, wherever I roam, I couldn't be fonder of my big home." Now, the published lyrics still say that, but when you watch the Disney movie now or play the original soundtrack recording, he is clearly not singing that. No. What he is singing now is, "Wherever I wander, wherever I roam, I couldn't be found of my big home," which in the context of the song makes no sense. It's very jarring when you hear it now. Now, the remake of The Jungle Book with Bill Murray, they're singing it the way it originally was. The change hasn't happened there. It's only happened in the night, which 1967 is the year I was born, which I find that significant too for me.
Strange.
It's a personal sort of change.
Yeah.
And the reason we know it's changed recently is because on March 22nd of 2017, the song played on my Pandora Shuffle, The Bare Necessities. And I posted it on a Facebook page that I have, a group called Pandora's Music Box, where I receive messages, which I use music as a divination tool to receive messages from the higher power or higher intelligence. And this was one of the songs sent to me when I asked a specific question. I asked silently in my own mind. And it was a question basically about what should parents who have young children be telling them or teaching them. Yeah. And he played the song The Bare Necessities. So I posted it along with the lyrics. Jim and I talked about it at length at that time. And that song at that time had not altered. It still was Phil Harris singing, "Wherever I wander, wherever I roam, I couldn't be fonder of my big home." So we know, we have proof that that alteration has happened very recently within the last year.
Whoa.
And it's very powerful because the published lyrics do not reflect the change. He's clearly singing something. And this is how I know that this is not a parallel reality, because in no parallel reality would Disney approve that version of the song.
Exactly.
Right.
It doesn't rhyme.
Yeah,
and that's a no-no at Disney. You rhyme everything. That's the world of Disney. Their songs rhyme.
Yeah.
And it doesn't make sense in the context of the song.
No,
the only way it makes sense is if you end the sentence after the new alteration.
Right.
"Wherever I wander, wherever I roam, I could not be found." That is a profound spiritual message, and that's what I believe these changes are. They are a higher intelligence desperate to communicate with us, and he's doing it through the changes in our reality, which he himself is doing. It's not a random accidental shift of different realities. Now, what's interesting about X-Files is that is the theory that they did present to the millions of viewers who were watching it that Wednesday night.
But in a deceptive
way.
Yeah.
I believe the last thing they want us to do is to connect these changes with a being, with an actual intelligent, divine source, because then you're connecting to something outside this reality that has dominion over it.
And it alters the entire setup we have going here.
Yeah. Now you're getting somewhere, because what you're seeing is proof, evidence of a supernatural deity.
Right.
And I think that is what they're afraid of, that we are going to connect with whatever that intelligence is, that cosmic intelligence that actually has the power to alter our physical material reality. And see, because then the next step you take, And this is where they don't want us going. And what I'm about to say is very provocative, and I've heard no one else in the 2.5 years I've been studying Mandela effect say this. And this to me is the key. The next leap I go is I look at who Phil Harris was, the actor whose line was altered.
Yeah.
He died in 1995 in his 90s. He's no longer alive.
Oh, wow.
So how does his vocal alter? I think what we're being shown is that the being who did the change has power over life and death.
I see.
I think we are being shown a preview of the resurrection of the dead.
Okay.
He's showing us that that is possible,
right?
Because I can bring him back to re-record this scene. And we're seeing that with a lot of the people who have died, who are Mandela affected now. I'll give you another example. Billy Burke in The Wizard of Oz, who played Glinda the Good Witch, her line has altered now. Her line where she used to say, click your heels 3 times and say there's no place like home. Now she says, tap your heels 3 times and say there's no place like home. That was not the line.
No.
So how does a woman who died, I think Billy died in the 60s. She's been gone a long time.
Yeah.
How is her line? How is she resurrected?
That's not even a
to
thing,
redo?
right?
So see, that's the spiritual place. The controllers of this realm do not want us to go, because I do believe we are in an underworld type realm.
Okay.
And that these are, whether you want to call them aliens or demonic beings, I think it's the same thing. They obviously need us here in this realm. We are a resource for them in some way, either food or energetically. And this is the prison that we're in. And that, I believe, the alterations.
Perhaps we're an imagination farm.
Yeah, some sort of dreamlike reality. And this being is hacked into it to let us know we are not in a real solid reality, and that there is something outside of this construct we're in, and that death itself may be part of this illusion, that we may in fact be immortal beings, and that they have tricked us into thinking we die, because that's what we're afraid of. So when you have fear, you can control the subjects through the fear that they feel. You know. So that's why the bare necessities is fascinating. I don't know if we're able to play the clip. I don't want to get.
Do you have it, Ryan?
I do have
copyright strike.
yeah.
It's about 20 seconds into the. Maybe if you only play 10 seconds, they'll have mercy on us.
They're kind of a big powerhouse, Disney.
I know they've been known to go into schools and arrest school teachers, haven't they? 3rd grade teachers for showing The Lion King to their class without permission.
Really?
I've heard. No, I'm exaggerating.
Most of education is people popping in videos today.
Oh, it is. Even when I was going to school.
Please.
About 20 seconds in, you said?
Yeah, about 20 seconds in.
Wherever I wander, wherever I roam, I couldn't be found off my big home.
Whoa.
The bees are buzzing in the tree to make some honey. Just
So can you play just one more time?
It's like really
wherever I
He
roam,
stresses the enemy.
I couldn't be
Stresses
found off my big home.
Yeah.
The bees
Just go back to 20 again if you
in the
can.
tree to make some honey of life. Wherever I wander, wherever I roam, I couldn't be found off my big home. The bees are
Wow.
buzzing.
It's absolutely astonishing.
It's like a warped part of a vinyl record.
Yeah, yeah, and so
There's
that's
like something real weird about that.
for people who don't understand this, and they would say, "Oh, well, that's just they've gone and changed it on the clip on YouTube." If you have the vinyl record from 1967 that was originally released with that soundtrack recording from The Jungle Book, and you go home to your parents' house and you dig it out and you play it, it will now say found.
Right.
The change happens on the source material. So this is a supernatural
effect on like this singer's voice.
and we
essentially.
have proof of it,
Yeah,
Justin.
right.
That's the thing that is so mind-blowing. It's something we don't. This is not a theory.
Yeah.
This is way deeper than a theory or this is evidence of a supernatural force at work in our reality. And like I said, there's no reality where they would have released that version.
Yeah.
So it's not that in a parallel universe, that's the version that we went to see in the movies.
So much of the Mandela effect, first of all, I think people complicate it way too much too quickly. It's the bottom line is, if you trust yourself and your memory,
Right.
and you say to yourself, wait, you know, how many times can you say that to yourself? Like, oh, I misforgot.
Like your gut's gonna probably tell you what's really going on in your
Right.
head. Like
Absolutely.
you really like more often than not, a person's gonna know what they remember for sure.
Yep,
Oops.
absolutely.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Don't get too far away from that gut feeling.
Right. Because it's all the other stuff that's gonna try to. Most of it's gonna purposely try to manipulate the
Right.
situation in your head.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Trust your gut.
And it's nothing to be afraid of. I know, you know, and I would like to say this to the Christian viewers who are very concerned about their Bible changes. You know, even if you do believe that this is a satanic power making the changes in your holy scriptures, you also understand from what your teaching is that God allows this to happen. Nothing happens in this realm without your divine higher powers
Say so.
allowing it.
Yeah.
Say so. So obviously there is some good that's going to come out of this. You know, this is necessary. This needs to happen. So I would just I'm concerned about people who react with fear, that it scares them,
Yeah.
that it's something. I say, put on your detective hat, be Sherlock Holmes. This is an incredible mystery that we can all get together and solve.
That goes for most, you know, fringe ideas too. You know, a lot of this stuff is unapproachable for some people out of fear of backlash from society, or out of fear of what they might find, or what rabbit hole they might get stuck down, and things like that. And realistically, like, that advice could be applied to all things. Like,
Absolutely.
just like finding your way through something with a detective hat on is a lot better than just cowering in the corner oftentimes, or just
Right.
yelling to the, you know.
Right. I mean, to find the clues, because I believe these are clues. These are messages coming from a place outside of our reality.
Right.
And this being that's doing is obviously incredibly powerful. I'll never forget how I felt with Sex in the City. And when I first saw it, I had to go to I think it was in Jensen, Barnes and Noble or wherever it is, where I knew they would have the movie CDs or something.
Yeah,
or the
yeah.
show. I had to see it evidence. I had to go down there and actually hold one of those DVDs and see that it actually said "and" on the cover instead of "in."
Right.
And when I did that, my entire life changed, because I knew ever since I was a child, I believed in a magical world.
Yeah.
And I was constantly disappointed that I wasn't in one.
Yeah.
You know, why is all the fantasy and magic fiction?
Right.
Why can't we live there? And what I discovered in that moment was we are magical beings, and we are somehow trapped in a very unmagical place.
The fictional characters in our fictional magical worlds don't think of their worlds as that special, because it's like the same in the fake world. For them, those characters, that's their norm. For us, in our world, it's our norm, so it's less magical to us, even though it more than likely many of the things that happen on a daily basis, whether it be the Mandela effect or synchronicity or anything like that, you know, those things are happening to mass numbers of people on a crazy scale, and largely going unexplained or untalked about. Like, there's a lot more going on here than, you know, your average school book will tell you about.
Well, you know, which that could take us into the synchronicity about
Yeah.
this particular alteration in the bare necessities. When I had my near-death experience, which I talked about last week on your
Yeah.
show, I shared how the being that I encountered told me that this world, the world you think you're living in, is not the world you're living in, and that there was a deception here. Well, one of the things that he also told me was, I can communicate with you through music, through the lyrics of songs. And in particular, he showed me that he could, and if I were to say this in a psychiatrist's office, I'd be carried out. I would be the man in the straitjacket at the end of X-Files. But I can communicate you through music on the radio, but especially using the Pandora Music app, because that's what I had. and he proved it to me when I got home from the hospital 3 days later after the near-death experience that I had. And since then, I have used this app, and what I do is I will ask a question, and usually they were simple questions like, what do I need to know, or what is true? I basically in the beginning just did that, but it got to where I could start asking specific questions and get intelligent responses. In the last, and so I opened a Facebook page called Pandora's Music Box. You know, and Pandora is the Greek goddess who opened the box. She was the first created a human being in that myth. And so I screenshot the song, and then I have a record. So on March 22nd, I put, and I don't know if Ryan can bring it up, but I posted that song message. I asked a question about what should parents tell their children, or I forgot how I worded it. And he played The Bare Necessities. That's the song that played. So that's how I was able to document that it hasn't changed, because Jim and I both really listened to that song, and there were no changes. It said Phil Harris was singing, I couldn't be fonder of my big home. But what's interesting when you look at the date, I posted it. The date he played that message was March 22nd. That brings us to 322, which is the skull and bones number.
Yeah.
So
that's nuts. Right
there, that's synchromysticism. It's looking deeply at everyday things and seeing something you may have missed. So you take 322, and what does that number, why do they use that number?
Yeah, why?
So this power that sent the message obviously wants me to look into that. So I started doing research on 322. Which
I'm sure there's a ton of information.
A ton of information. Yeah. One of the things that I found, which is one of the theories of why they use that number, is Genesis 3:22.
Okay.
And I don't know if I don't have it in front of me to read it, but maybe you could pop it up. It's a very interesting scripture in the Bible.
All right, the New International Version.
Yeah, you can just read that one.
And the Lord God said, the man has now become like one of us, knowing good and evil. He must not be allowed to reach out his hand and take also from the tree of life and eat and live forever.
That's mind-blowing.
Yeah.
What is that saying? So I believe that that song that I posted a year ago was for me today to realize the synchronicity connected to it, come in and share that with the audience, and let them see that verse, because who is us?
Right.
This is the supreme God talking.
Yeah.
Right.
Who is he referring to as let us? And he's talking about denying these beings immortality and to know the truth.
That's so crazy.
And is that why Skull and Bones uses that number as their secret code, or their secret number, because they're denying us the truth,
right?
Some information or secret knowledge that they possess.
You always commit to the con.
So you know, this is what synchromysticism is. It's guidance coming from a higher source that's intelligent, and I believe what it wants is to free us. That this is a bondage type situation, and that these stories, the Bible, all of the different ancient myths, they're pointing a way out.
It's so strange, like the whole setup we have here, and I often think about how just very odd it is how everybody likes to go to sleep but nobody wants to die, how like thin our reality is most times. Like it is so easy for a person to recall a dream or to tell a story about, oh, I thought I was there, like, you know. And I've had friends who have had experiences from all different ways of like living in different things for months on a time and then coming back here. And it's like I used to play Dungeons and Dragons when I was a kid, and I remember talking to my friends about all these different things that we would dream about and have experiences about, and we would go and do weird New Jersey things and look for ghosts and things like that, and just exploring our world. And it just doesn't seem like everything is as solid as they want you to think it is.
Right.
Like there's just way too much synchronicity sometimes, and it's definitely been ramping up in the past few years, like on a major level.
Oh, I've had so many examples of synchronicity in my life. I can't even. one of the things that popped up for me before I met Nathan, one of the things that got me into this whole new age started, you know, the internet came along, was I kept seeing the number 1111
Yeah. Okay.
on clocks. And this was happening for years. And I just said, I took it personal. I said, oh, that's a little ray of hope from my creator and whatever.
Yeah.
And it just, okay, fine. I felt good about it. But then it happened for so long, I decided to look into it. And I started going on the internet, and I could not believe the number of people that were going through the same thing.
Right.
There were sites on this very subject
Yeah.
about the awakening.
I wonder, like that number thing is huge. You know, I have an ex love interest, and there is this obsession with this one number with her, and it seemed to affect every facet of her life.
What was the number?
27.
Interesting.
Right.
That's the 27 Club.
I know.
So
And she was a
many,
huge fan of
mu-
Kurt Cobain and things like that.
Yeah.
I'm wearing a Hendrix
Died
shirt.
at 27.
Yeah.
For those aren't
The
familiar
27
with
club, that number has a lot of weight to it. That's one of those numbers. And 1111's another one. And then you got the 999 and 666 numbers, like those
it. Oh,
ones.
did you see the Dow dropped
Yes.
666
Yes,
points?
I did. Yeah.
According to the headline on CNN.
Right.
Now, if you cannot see that headline and not realize there's something off here, folks.
Oh, in a major way.
There's something not real about this reality.
Well,
So-
that's what we're doing. Most of what we're doing, especially with the Mandela effect, is it's an odyssey. We're on this magical odyssey, and we're connecting the dots to things.
Yeah.
And I'm a firm believer of, you know, I'll learn things, I'll read things and get some information. But I'm careful not to side myself with any one thing and just stay there.
Same with me. I really enjoy looking at both sides of the coin, so to speak. Like, I'm just like super fascinated with trying to take the hardest stance on either side.
Right.
You know, like I really want, like the poster says, I want to believe.
Right.
Right.
You know what I mean? You guys are gonna do your own show.
Yes.
What's that?
Yes,
gonna be?
we're very excited about it. Starting next week,
All right.
Sunday at 2 o'clock.
All right.
We're going to premiere our new show with Herald Broadcasting. It's called Synchronicity, Mysticism, and the Mandela Effect.
Oh,
And we're going to explore these topics every Sunday at 2 o'clock if you want to watch the live broadcast. And then it'll, of course, be loaded up on YouTube so you can watch it whenever it's convenient for you.
Yeah.
And we're going to have guests on from time to time, and we're going to really talk about everything under that umbrella of the Mandela Effect and the synchronicities, mysticism, and what these messages are telling, to explore that in a deeper way and not just get caught up in this changed or it didn't change.
Yeah.
But take, like we did today, take that one
The theory
change and
talk
really
more.
look at it,
Right.
really delve deeply into that one change and what is it trying to say to us.
Yeah.
Because if something is taking the time and the trouble to do this, these are obviously important and we need to look at them.
Taking details to a logical conclusion is
Correct.
key in understanding the world around you.
Be Sherlock Holmes.
Yes.
Be Columbo.
That's
You
it.
know.
Yeah.
That's
so. All right, we're out of time for today, but it was awesome having you guys.
Thank you for having us.
Great. Thank
No
you so
problem.
much, Justin.
And I look forward to seeing your show, and to the audience and universe out there, thank you for watching. Later.
God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountain to the prairie, to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her from the mountain to the